Welcome back to Erik bolagsdagen. My name is Claes Palin and I'm an equity analyst at the bank. We will move ahead with our next company and I will be interviewing Initiator Pharma CEO Klaus Elsborg Olesen. Very welcome, Klaus.
Thank you very much.
Maybe we could start off to any new investors out there. If you could give us a short introduction about Initiator Pharma.
Yeah. So Initiator Pharma is a clinical stage pharma company developing drugs for high unmet medical needs within the peripheral system and the central nervous system. So here we are advancing currently two drugs, IP 2015 and 2018 in erectile dysfunction, so sexual health in men. And we are targeting either organic or what we call psychogenic ED. In parallel to that, we are also advancing a neuropathic pain program, 2015, based on that compound, where we actually tested in a recent study, in a pain healthy volunteer study, where we showed that we have great efficacy with this. But overall, you can say that right now we are in phase 2 with our two ED drugs. We have a phase 2A that we just included the last patients in. We're going to have the readout coming up in Q2, and we're going to have the organic readout in Q3.
Mm-hmm. I'll come back to your very exciting pipeline, but if you could just describe the business model for us.
Yeah, so you can say developing drugs there's a lot of risk in developing drugs, and the way we set up the company originally, we wanted to take some of these risk elements out. And we do this with when we select the projects, we actually have 4 criteria that we look at, and one of the things that we wanted to take drugs that was, fairly advanced, so meaning that they're ready to enter the clinic or have been through a phase 1, so that at least we knew whether they were safe in patients or whether we only had to do very limited work to bring them into the clinic. This is because this is very cost efficient. Then we wanted to target indication where there's a commercial need. We wanted to target something that we actually can see there will be a benefit of treating. And what's most important is that we wanted to target pathways that have been validated. So we wanted to target something that we knew actually would have an effect in these patients, in the indications we go in, but also it will give us an upside that we also know what is the endpoint in the indications we go in, so it will be easier to get the approval for such an asset. So that's the way we positioned it. So what we want as a business, we want to train in assets that we want to create value by delivering clinical results, and then either co-develop them forward or finding somebody who will want to take them into the pivotal trial and then market them ultimately.
And the commercial strategy. When do you think? I mean, probably differences between the projects. But if you could describe a little bit about when is the right time to find a partner that could commercialize the assets.
Yeah, the right time, that's always the tricky one.
Yeah.
You have to do it at the peak of the value creation. And you can say in drug development, one of the big increase or the inflection points is that we actually show this works in patients. And this is what we are doing now in the phase 2 studies. We're actually showing in the right segment where we want to position it ultimately, that we actually have a meaningful effect on the patients. So we believe that, going forward, out-licensing is not always the goal, because sometimes you can create more value yourself, bringing the asset forward. Yeah. But you also want to make sure you find an out-licensing partner that matches what you need. It's not just about offloading something, because a lot of the deals are backloaded, so you get development milestones, so you want to make sure that you reach those. So you want to feel comfortable with the partner you reach out to and make a license agreement with. So that's also part of the work that is ongoing, or continues ongoing in Initiator Pharma.
Yeah, how active are you in business development?
So, like all companies that we are active, we are out there, we are presenting the data, we have shown them the pain data, we've shown them phase 2A data in organic erectile dysfunction, and we get a lot of excitement about doing something new in this space, both on the ED but also on the pain setting. So what we are doing now, of course, we are trying to find who's the ideal ones, who's the ones that we want to continue developing it, and that's an ongoing process that, of course, is supported by additional data. Yeah, so while we are creating value, yeah.
Great. You have a very limited organization today. Could you describe the personnel inside the organization today, and if you see further needs to expand the organization?
So it's like in all sports, you need to have the right team.
Exactly.
And it's not the people sitting on the bench that is going to make a difference for you. So we actually try to make sure that we have the people that we need for the various tasks at hand. You can say that it's, beside myself in the company, you can say we have 2 full-time employees, Christine Gullberg, who's running our clinical operation part and helping us with the outcome measures and so on. And then we have a research scientist, a senior research bench scientist, helping us generating data to support all the indication work we are doing. And then the other co-founders of the companies are very, very much involved as well. But they are working as consultants, so they're working as the time that we require, so we don't have a big overhead of people sitting around and not doing anything. We have the people we need for the task at hand at the right time.
Okay, perfect. And how does the ownership structure look like today?
So you can say the biggest shareholders we have is Link AB. We also have Rodrigo in as a big owner. And then we still see the management, the co-founders still sit on a healthy portion of the company. And then we have more than 4,000 retail investors that we are really happy that we have so many supporting us in our quest to develop medicine that is meaningful for patients. Without them, this would not be possible. So we are striving to deliver value to all our shareholders, and this also includes the smaller ones, the bigger ones, and also ourselves. Yeah.
Sounds good. And then let's jump to your clinical programs that you mentioned in the introduction. And maybe we could start with IP 2018. You have an ongoing phase 2A study. If you could give us some background.
Yeah, so the 2018 trial is in the segment what we call the mild depressed and men suffering from ED. So this is what we call psychogenic origin. This psychogenic origin ED is something that can hit all men, independent of age. So you can say that the young people and older people can have it. We often see it as depressed people have it quite a bit. We see people with low anxiety or low self-esteem. So that is the trial we want to. We want to target this segment with IP 2018. What we actually doing in the phase 2A study is actually we are doing a three-arm crossover, double-blinded crossover study. And what we're doing a placebo, and we're doing high and low dose of 2018. So all the patients included in this trial, all 24, have received 3. Then we take them in and we use the Regiscan, which we also used in the phase 2A for the 2015 study. The Regiscan is an apparatus that we mount on the penis, and then we show them an erotic movie, and then we measure the rigidity or a response, you can say, of the erotic movie that they see on the penis. So this is you can say an artificial way of measuring it, but it's a good way to measure the function of the tablet. So that study now we recruited the last 2 patients in. Very nice to complete the recruitment on this, and we've been really sticking to it. That we wanted to have all 24 patients into this study to make the result as robust as possible. And it's really exciting looking now, waiting for the data. I think we are just as excited as all the shareholders, looking forward to see the draft data that we expect to have at the end of Q2 of this year. And then we're going to look at, for the first time, somebody is targeting, the sexual response in these depressed patients with an ED drug. So it's going to be quite unique, and we look forward to see the results here.
Is it purely the sexual response that you are looking for, or is it other parameters that also will be important?
It is a phase 2A study, so safety and tolerability, of course, is a key component of this. You can say that we have not been informed that there's anything going on, so that's a good sign. That's the only thing we know from the trial, and because then we have to disclose it, of course, to everybody. But you can say that now we're coming in, and we are using the Regiscan apparatus as the key measurement for this. But of course, the safety and tolerability is key as well, because there needs to be a correlation here, right?
Yeah. Sure. And if the data looks promising, what would be the next step for the compound?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Claes, because what is promising data? How does that look like?
Exactly.
We remember in the phase 2A in the 2015, we saw a 25% response rate. We were very happy with that because it was patient that was very difficult to treat. Now we are looking in a completely new segment. So if we see the same or higher efficacy, that would be good. We also want to, that's the beauty of having a crossover study, that we can actually see what is the intrapatient assembly looking like. So here again, with data, we will take an assessment of what going forward. You can say that what we are investigating here is, of course, is the erection response, but we also know that 2018 has a very good profile in animal work on depression. But we do not measure this in a study. It's a different study we need to set up for that. But at least you can say, in the future, could there be an interest in exploring what is the antidepressant effect of this compound? Could it be a substitute for some of the mild depressions? Not. That's too early to say. Data in the animal models say that, but we need to continue looking at that. And that could be depending on how a phase 2 trial could look like, or phase 2B trial. But it also very much depends on the interactions we have with the pharma companies that have shown an interest in this. What is their preference? Because, of course, we want to make sure that what we actually produce is something that is an asset we can ultimately partner up with somebody on.
And looking at the potential effects on as an antidepressant, could that be a doable clinical study for you, or do you see that the patient population would be too great for you?
Of course, to make the numbers really strong, you need a lot of patients to go into that, and it's the duration of those trials are longer. But I definitely see that there is potential to make a co-development partnerships with companies that are looking into this area specifically. We could also say that, okay, this is what we get out of the phase 2A is actually supporting that the ED is the right way to go. Then let's continue that development path and then make that data set even more strong, as we're doing now with the phase 2B on 2015, and then develop it from there in partnership with a partner in the future.
Okay. And then let's jump to IPED 2015, and you can give us a background to the program.
Yeah, so the IPED 2015 program is based on using the IP 2015 asset, and that's an organic erectile dysfunction. This is, you can say, the more known ED we see. This is organic origin, so it's when you turn 40 years older, men like us, we start getting older, then actually we get less capable of delivering sufficient blood to the penis. And you can say in that area, there can be a lot of reasons for that. It could be that the lifestyle we have, it could be diabetes, it could be overweight, consumption of alcohol, and there's many influence factors that is causing organic erectile dysfunction. So in this study, we are actually trying to go in and say, who is our target? Because we all know that there's products out there called the PD5, so Erik and Cialis, but we are actually targeting the patients that are non-responsive or do not tolerate the current therapies out there. So you're saying we are trying to find out who is the patient that cannot take PD5 or who actually cannot get sufficient relief. Those are the ones we're targeting. So we're positioning us in a quite unique position there with having an asset like ours. We also have a very different mechanism of action again, where you can say that the PD5s have all been working on what we call a peripheral action. So when you had an erection, you could, sustain the erection for longer. We are working on a central component, also the peripheral component, and here we can actually induce the sexual response leading to an erection. So it's two very different compounds and also two very different populations we're targeting.
Mm-hmm. And this target population, how large is it?
So we see that in general ED patients, about 30 to 40% are poor responders or do not tolerate the PD5s. And we know there's millions and millions of patients. There's more than 400 million ED patients worldwide. As you can see, it's a really large segment of patients that we are targeting here. We know that in specific segments like people suffering from diabetes, the non-responsive rate is up to 50%. So it's a very large market.
And have a compound that works through your CNS. Could that be something that raises the bar for future studies?
You can say that targeting the CNS system is always a thing that gives a lot of you can say scrutiny from their authorities, and that's also why we're very pleased the profile that we have. We have a very clean drug-drug interaction profile of 2015. We so far in the clinic we have not seen anything that is not explainable, that is understandable, that fits with the action of the compound. So we have a very clean safety profile at this stage. So that's very encouraging for developing such a drug.
And the recruitment to the phase 2B study, how is this?
It's going real well. We see that here in this study, that where in the two phase 2A studies we talked about previously, they need to go into a dark room and watch an erotic movie. This is not, was sometimes limiting the recruitment rate. We do not see that in the phase 2B study, where actually it's a drug, you go and get the drug and then you try it at home with your partner. So you see really good numbers coming into this. So we have said we will complete the dosing in the first half of this year, and then we expect to have top-line results or draft results at the end of Q3. So we are on track as we came out with. Last time we updated the market, and this was in November, and we are still recruiting nice into that and should get the 120 patient mark.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, this is quite a substantial patient population that you're targeting. I mean, do you see any competitors out there under development?
There's a few competitors in the market. You can say that the majority of the competitors are trying to develop new formulations of the PD5, something that works faster. You can say that our drug, we know there's an onset time about an hour and a half from you take the drug to you start seeing the efficacy. So they're trying to get a PD5, but that's not a competition because you can say ours are targeting a different segment. Then there's the injectables where you can inject yourself directly into the penile tissue, or you insert a small tablet in the urine tract. That's also drugs out there that can be used for these pure responders or poor responders. However, it's not something that we see. That's an independent erection, independent of stimulation, and it's not what the patients prefer. Then we see there's a few things in the pipeline, but there's too early to say. We haven't seen any clinical data really supporting that this is something that can be developed. But of course, we keep on looking at what's out there, because there's many ways to develop significant drugs, but we actually are for ED. But we think that the approach that we are taking, strengthening the natural erection response, makes good sense. We're strengthening something that is already there.
And when you are out talking to pharma companies and biotech, how is the interest for erectile dysfunction?
We have actually seen a little bit of an increase. We originally, when we came out, we saw a lot of this. Yeah, but what about the PD5? So you can say our education has helped. So we're talking more about this. You can say on the Korean side, in Korea and China, they're very much aware that the PD5s are not functioning enough. I think that the US was lagging behind this understanding. We see it in Europe; they have this understanding. So there's an increasing interest in drugs that can actually provide sexual relief for these men.
And going back to when the right time is to partner, I guess this would be when you have the phase 2b data in hand, or?
Yeah, so we say with the phase 2b data in hand, we get the draft data, and then we start analyzing that. And that is, of course, the time where we also need to hit the road and start showing this to all the interested parties that we have a continuous dialogue with, and making sure that they understand what is actually the utility of what we have shown here. Yeah.
Okay, and then I would like to move to your pain program, IPTN 2021, and what is that about?
Yeah, so the pain program is based again on the IP 2015 asset. So when we acquired the 2015 asset back in the day, there was a large data package, and we could actually see that it had very good function on ED in our hands, and we could see they also had a very strong pain profile. They measured it up against the duloxetine. So at that time in animal studies, and it looked really promising. And then as we were advancing the assets, and we actually saw this compound was safe to administrate, where we saw from the ED trials, we said maybe we should try to explore, what is the actual pain relief, because it is a little bit different from what has been done before. Previously, some antidepressants has been used for treating pain. You see, duloxetine was one of them, for example, that was developed by Eli Lilly. And there's other neuropathic pain compounds that are working also via the same system. So we said, okay, let's see, we have a good safety profile on IP 2015, but we also have a different profile because we are not targeting serotonin as much. We are primarily a dopamine driver. So then we actually went in, we did a healthy volunteer study where we took in 24 healthy volunteers, and then we induced pain with with capsaicin, which is the active ingredient in chili, into the skin. And then we actually used pregabalin as a control. Pregabalin is a Pfizer drug that was approved for neuropathic pain. So all healthy volunteers, they got 2 doses of our compound, they got pregabalin and got placebo, and then we ran a whole series of pain tests on these patients, or healthy volunteers. And we saw here that we had really nice pain relief with this asset. And also we could see that, on a number basis, it actually proved to be very safe, very, very limited side effects of the compound. So this is actually for the first time demonstrating that dopamine actually plays a really important role. It's not only serotonin that can drive this pain relief. And this has been really interesting. Going around with that, showing it to KOLs in the pain community, first reaction is, yeah, but we have tried before. Then they look at the safety profile, and they also look at the monoamine profile that is primarily dopamine, and suddenly we give a whole different response. So we are continuing the dialogue with KOLs and with companies here to see how we can develop this best going forward. Our original thought, and that is still what we are thinking about, is the trigeminal neuralgia indications. But of course, with the data at hand, we actually see that the scope is potentially much wider than what we originally thought when we started this program. So that's very opportunistic for us.
And how wide?
Yeah, there's always a limit, right? we think that with the data right now, we still exploring there's many in neuropathic, but it's still neuropathic pain we are pursuing. Yeah.
Okay. And you are performing a pharmacokinetic study. What do you want to see from this study?
Yeah, so the pharmacokinetic study is done with the new formulation of IP 2015. Every time we make a new, you could say, a new formulation, we need to make sure it behaves in the same way. Yep. And this is exactly what the pharmacokinetic study is doing. So we're actually dosing the new formulation. We are ensuring that we get the same exposure, we get the same profile that we did with the drug in the bottle that we used in the first 2 trials. This is needed. We need to have bioavailability, otherwise we have no drug going forward. We're looking forward to get all the analytics done of this study, so we can actually come out and saying, okay, is it matching? Is it actually the drug we can take forward? And of course, we have tested this in animals previously, where we saw a really good profile. But the ultimate test, of course, is running a pharmacokinetic study in humans.
And as you mentioned previously, this drug is based on the same compound as IPAD 2015. What's the differentiation between these 2 drugs?
So you can say the 2015 formulation, I cannot go into details exactly what it was, but that's a little bit of a secret still from us because that's a part of the patent prosecution we are doing. But we are matching a compound that actually matches the profile that we need for the indication. And you can say with pain, we know there's something about duration and something about the Cmax levels and so on. So that's things that we are advancing with this new formulation. And it gives us brand new IP. So it will be a composition of matter on the formulation. So it'll give us 20-year new IP protection on this formulation. So that's been really, really strong for the future commercial potential of this asset.
And the ongoing study, you expect data in Q2? And when do you think you could inform the market of what could be the next step?
So I would just you said the ongoing of the pharmacokinetic.
Yeah.
So you say that as soon as we have the data back there, then we will say, okay, this is a formulation that we will take forward. That formulation could be used in future work in the 2015 in the IPAD 2015 program.
Okay.
In erectile dysfunction, it could also be used in the pain in the IP and TN21 trial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. But when do you think you could specify what kind of indication you will move forward with?
I cannot say the precise data, but that's something that's ongoing. But we will try to get there as fast as possible. But again, I think what's really important for us is, resources are limited, and we want to use the money in the right place, and that's what we have done all along, and that's also what we continue doing now.
And you mentioned your new formulation gave you 20 extra years of IP protection. Yeah. Could you describe your IP protection surrounding your portfolio at the moment?
Yeah, so you can say at this stage the IP 2015 has a composition of matter that expires in 2031 in the US, and now we have added the formulation filings on this that we are working on, and then also we have indication filings on this medical use claims filed. So you can say we actually have a very strong portfolio of IP supporting these going forward. Yeah.
Sounds very good. And also I would like to have a question about, you had this option last year that you decided not to exercise. Yeah. Could you give us some more information why?
Yeah, so as we talked about before, Claes, we're always trying to find an asset that fits with the profile, something that we can generate a clinical proof of concept within a reasonable or modest timeline and also investment money-wise, and then something where there's a commercial opportunity. So we were addressing this asset, and when we started looking, when we brought it in for assessment, it actually fulfilled quite of these criteria. But as we looked more into depth and trying to understand what did we need to demonstrate to actually reach the next inflection point for this asset, we saw that there was simply too much cost involved, and also we thought the risk was too high. And again, we are also shareholders in the company, and we said that's not a risk we want to take. It's too costly, so that's why we actually decided not to pursue this. We still think that it's an attractive asset for somebody, but for us it was just too much risk and too much cost.
Understandable. Are you still out there looking for other compounds that could fit your pipeline?
Yes, we always look. As I said in the beginning, we are a company focused on developing medicine for significant unmet medical needs within the central and the peripheral nervous system. So we are looking for assets out there that potentially could be. But of course, it still needs to be at the right time and at the right cost. So that's something we really need to be careful, because it's no problem onboarding extra projects. But we have a lean organization. We don't want to stretch that. We want to make sure we can deliver on the assets that we have ongoing and that are fully financed all the way to 24 and actually maybe even into 25. So it's really, really nice to be in that position. We can focus on delivering in the programs we have, but it still gives us room to look at new assets that are out there.
Yeah, and just a follow-up then on your financing. You had 39 million Danish crowns going into 2023. Do you say this supports businesses into 2024 or perhaps?
Yeah, so throughout 24 and then into,
Okay.
And it's what is including in the money we have there, Claes, is that they will actually finance all the clinical readouts that we have talked about today. So there's nothing that we need to go out and say, okay, now suddenly we need money for this. So we fully finance to deliver on these results. And that's a nice position to be in, because we know what actually drives value is delivering clinical results. And that's what we're on the brink. We're going to have readouts end of Q2 and end of Q3 and 2 really important indications.
And that was my last question. If you could sum up the news flow in the next coming 12 months.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about the next 12 months. As I just said, we're going to have the results from the pharmacokinetic study. We are still exploiting the pain asset and going in that was really, really well received among KOLs. And then we have these 2 unique readouts. We know in the phase 2B trial, we have shown there's efficacy with this drug in this patient segment before. Now we beefed it up to 120 patients. Really excited with the new endpoints. That is the EIF score, which is the same endpoint that will be used in a pivotal trial. Super excited about that. And then for the first time ever, somebody's going to develop a medication for mild depressed ED patients within the psychogenic segment. And we are the one developing it. So it's really exciting.
Very good. Thank you so much, Klaus.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the questions. Yeah.
Thank you for everybody listening in.